way back around 2005, we used to talk about this thing called convergence. And convergence at that point in time was about how we were going to deliver content on a single device and how that device would handle multiple forms of media and communication. Well, if we wind ahead to the present, it's absolutely clear that people have not converged, and we consume digital information and media on many devices. And I exemplify this. I've got a laptop, a mobile phone, a tablet device, and I expect that all of the content that I want is going to be available on those devices at any point in time when I want it. You know, and it doesn't matter that I need the content for either my professional or my private life. You know, I want it when and where I am. So as the year progresses, we expect to see more and more attention being paid to smart TVs in addition to the types of devices that you see here, which are going to, again, increase the number of delivery points for content and also impact our ability to engage with our audiences. So all of this is leading us to an explosion in volume, an explosion in challenges in channels, and therefore in the capability of content providers to distribute and engage across multiple experiences. By 2015, there will be over 15 billion fixed and mobile network devices in the world. And often the way we as content providers and publishers have addressed those new devices is to simply tack on an additional production process to our existing content production. That's how we made it happen. The iPad would come out and we tack on a process for the iPad. A new operating system might be released and we tack on a process for that new production process. And if a new mobile operating system comes along, we're going to tack on to support production delivery to that. You know, a lot of times these processes are even built upon our old print production processes, which sit at the forefront of everything that we do. It's difficult to deliver at the speed of digital when you're constrained by the timing of print, and the entire ecosystem of product delivery becomes more and more fragile as more and more distinct processes are added to this mix. So what's been happening with tablets is truly changing what we see today. And the numbers that you see on this chart are just absolutely staggering, at least they are to me. And already in 2012, these numbers have been revised upward. We're expecting to see up to 150 million tablet sales in 2012, and about 80 million of those are expected to be Apple devices. So as we look at this tremendous growth, this surge of devices, it presents opportunities for us as content providers to engage our customers and to engage our readers. But at that same time, it begs a lot of questions. For example, which devices, operating systems, and distribution channels should we target? And in what sequence should we go about targeting them? Should we be writing in native applications, web applications, and should we be using that create once, publish anywhere model that so many of us have strived to achieve, or some combination of those? How is our production workflow going to adapt to the explosion of these devices that we have in front of us? And how are we going to be able to track the success of these applications? How are we going to know what data and information is coming back from those devices? What we see today is that it's not just traditional publishers anymore that are faced with these challenges. For example, United Airlines is putting iPads in the cockpits of all of their airplanes. There'll be about 11,000 iPads in United Airlines cockpits, and what they're doing is eliminating pilot flight bags. Those flight bags are used to carry paper maps, charts, flight materials, and such. And so why is United doing this? It turns out that paper is heavy, and weight translates into fuel, which translates into money for the airline industry. In United's case, they expect to save about 16 million sheets of paper per year, and those 16 million sheets of paper translate into about 326,000 gallons of fuel per year. So by publishing their content to a tablet device, they're going to save 326,000 gallons of fuel annually. And that's the difference that a 1.5-pound tablet, like an iPad in this case, can have for the airline industry. Now let's take a look at what this means to us as content producers. This new environment creates a challenge for us. We have to innovate in order to compete in new and even our existing markets. We have to be able to revitalize our content, and we have to be able to present our content digitally. That's what our customers are demanding. In this world, print producers are breaking under the weight of old processes, and we have to tap into the potential that digital publishing offers. And kind of that weight of the old processes is what I was talking about, where many people have just tacked on one process on another. So as we look at multi-channel publishing, that in and of itself presents a lot of challenges. In order to achieve multi-channel publishing, content has to be portable by design. And by that I mean not just transformed or converted from shape to shape or delivery channel to delivery channel, or forced into a format like PDF to a device that is not necessarily meant for PDF. But we have to engage more in creating our content and designing it for the distribution channels that we have. Publishing processes have to scale to support both the digital and the print publishing activities. The integration of our content and technology is really upon us. We find that our existing products, our existing platforms, and our existing production capabilities, in those we often don't take that into account. We don't take into account the fact that content and technology need to be and are coming rapidly together. But one of the things that we're going to talk about over the next several minutes is how to go about linking the development of your content with your technology. Determining our technology strategy is oftentimes bewildering. These large monolithic applications that we've had in the past and content sources, monolithic content sources, are no longer meeting all of the needs of our clients and of our readership. They don't adapt well to mobile devices. So that leads me to the question, at least, of whether or not to produce native apps or web apps. And this is an important decision. It's not just a technology decision, but your technology choices also have impact on the business side of the equation. They have implications on the business models that you engage in. If you, for example, sell through the iTunes store, Apple's going to take a cut of that revenue. And in a lot of cases, that makes sense for you as a publisher, but in some cases, it just doesn't. So the right answer is dependent on some of your specific business needs. Also, working through an app store-like platform, you often don't get information back about your readers and information about what's happening with your content, and that feedback is often critical, especially for publishers that are in an advertising-centric model. Needing to understand what's happening with the readership is, as you know, very critical. So in working through how to implement all of this, how do you go about managing that change? How do you manage that transition from working in your current mode to working into a new mode and finding a new way of doing business? The people management issues here are just tremendous, as well as the technology management issues. And how you get from point A to point B is one of the critical questions that we have to ask. So the holy grail of publishing has been this really simple model, and we believe this is still the direction that many publishers should be going. The subtlety here is that we're talking about writing and developing once and publishing often. And so that's speaking again to the combination of developing your content and technologies together. We're looking at a highly flexible approach to content delivery capabilities where content is tagged, structured, and indexed in a common way. And we're looking for scalability and flexibility in multi-channel publishing and in two-way content delivery. This also drives back into the production systems and the content creation systems and processes that you have in place. And it requires you to define what those new systems are going to be and how to move forward. We see all of this requires a unified content strategy which recognizes the multiple possible content distribution channels. And you may also find the need to acquire and develop new skills within the organization. For example, technical skills such as HTML5 in order to make this reality. So in our work to help publishers and content providers work through these questions, we've identified 3 key insights which drive the work that we do and also drive what we recommend and believe to be a solid practice for developing digital products. The first of these is that content and technology development must go hand in hand. I mentioned this just a little while ago. And we'll talk about what that means to us in a little bit. We also have to manage our digital content development with a progressive release methodology, and we have to be agile in our development. Now, in our industry, we've talked about agile content for a long time. And in the technology world, we've had agile development methodologies out there for a long time. What we at Innodata are doing are finding ways to marry those two and make them work together so we can develop content in an agile manner, not just create agile content, but also develop that content in a way. Semantic subtlety there, but it's important in terms of delivering product to market. We can bring that together with our methodologies for technology development and work towards rapid feedback and rapid change going forward within those methodologies. The cycle that we're going to talk about is to make a change in a short period of time, get feedback, either internally or from the external market, adjust to that feedback, and then move forward with the next change. So based on those 3 key insights, Innodata has developed a defined approach for new product development. In our view, it's vital to any content, product, or service delivery that has technology at its core that there's a methodology used to overcome the 6 landmines that are commonly encountered along the way. Our defined approach for new products has been implemented to achieve just that. And this approach is at the core of how we engage and support successful conclusions in our projects and what we advise our clients to do. So we'll go through each one of these items in a little bit more detail, but it's basically broken up into 2 different areas. The first 3 steps of this approach are to figure out where you are and what you want to be. And throughout human existence, there's always been a link between what we can imagine and what we can create. If it can be imagined, it can be created. And this first part of the approach is working on what you can imagine, as well as identifying where you are so you can move forward from there and create it. The second part of this, the steps 4 and 5, are related to the agile content development and the progressive release methodology that I mentioned, and how we go about executing on that vision and executing on the change that needs to take place. It's interesting to note that these methods don't necessarily follow in a sequential order, and only a subset of them may be appropriate given your specific set of circumstances. So keep in mind that this is a framework and something that can and should be tailored for your specific needs. So with that, let's go on into product visualization. What we're looking for here in this product visualization stage is to develop an understanding of what it is you want to deliver from a digital product perspective, or in any product perspective. The methodology is geared toward delivering products for the first time correctly, and for clarifying what it is that we're trying to achieve. We'll see historically, we have seen that historically requirements for new products have been built up and documented in long, lengthy documents or Excel spreadsheets that are very difficult to consume. And we've all heard horror stories about working with offshore development because we're trying to communicate those requirements through these long and difficult documents. The product visualization approach that we are utilizing starts with whiteboarding sessions in order to determine what we want the product to be. We'll move from there into different scenarios of how that product will be worked and delivered, and continue developing through a series of low fidelity and high fidelity wireframes what the product is going to look like. Now, these steps are fairly common in software development. They are things in terms of product development, though they're generating a lot of traction in order to be able to deliver and set that vision for where your products want to be. And the way we apply that to content, as we'll see here in a little bit, is somewhat unique. So the first practice is the solution visualization, in utilizing visual methods in order to define what it is that you want to deliver. But it really doesn't stop there. One of the foundations of Agile development and how we tie together Agile content development with Agile technology development is that the scope can and will increase over time. So with that in mind, the concept of a minimal viable product is coming to the forefront in the industry. And in that way, the idea there is to get something into the marketplace, collect feedback from that product, and grow it over time. And our methodology takes that into account and allows that sort of cycling of vision, cycling of requirements development throughout the life cycle. The next step is the content profiling, the next methodology. This methodology we often works in tandem with solution visualization. And what we're looking to accomplish with content profiling is to identify, based on what you have defined as your product, what the needs of the content are. So how do you drive the functionality of the product with the functionality in the content? So a simple example of that might be if you need to navigate in your product using a taxonomy, then you need a taxonomy and content classified to it. Again, a very simple example. But in this process of content profiling, we begin to tie in directly the functionality that's required in the product with the functionality that has to be available in the content. One of the things that we find often with publishers is that they actually have capabilities in the content that's not used and is not being reflected in their product today, which is kind of a little bit of a different twist. Rather than identifying what needs to go into the content, we'll oftentimes uncover functionality within the content that the product is not taking advantage of, and that's because content and technology was not developed together. So in going through an exercise of understanding what it is that you want to deliver and mapping that back to what needs to be in your content and doing an analysis of your existing content to understand what is there and what capabilities you might be able to drive out of it is the real benefit of content profiling methodology. One of the key things that comes out of content profiling, which you should consider, is that when you have that baseline of where you are and you have an understanding of where you want to be, at least for the next couple of iterations, you should think about defining the map for how you're going to get there. And we'll talk about those implementation steps in just a couple of minutes. But the third methodology, which ties in with solution visualization oftentimes and setting this vision of where you want to go, is technology blueprints. for some publishers, technologies are set, and there's a clear direction for where you're going to go, what you're going to do, and how you're going to do it. For others, there's not. So when we do a technology evaluation, we actually work across 5 dimensions. And those dimensions are, first of all, referenceability. We try to identify, we do identify, if the technology has been used before in similar products. We look also at the ability to execute. And that's where we look at both you and your partners to assess if you have on the team the skills to deliver with the technology that's under consideration. The third step is looking at risk and determining the key technical product risks and establishing mitigation plans around those. And the fourth is developing a fit to requirements. We think a fit to requirements is not only now, but also into the future. This approach can be generalized back to what we believe are industry-leading practices. As you are defining what your solution is going to be, and you're defining what the product is going forward, you've identified not only what you want to deliver today, but also what you want to deliver in subsequent iterations. And when you bring in the needs of the business model and the monetization activity, these essentially become requirements that we need in order to map the technology selection. Finally, we look at ROI, of course. So let's pause for a second. Those first 3 steps really help to set the tone for what it is that you're going to do. We've identified where you want to be in the future. We've identified what the product or products are going to look like. We've identified the current state of your content, the current state of your technology, and developed a roadmap to move it to where you want to be. And these next few steps, we'll start talking about about development and how to go about getting there. This is where we really extend the concepts of Agile. They've been introduced early on with the solution visualization, but this is where they in the development delivery where they really come to fruition. Through the telling of stories, people will say who we are, they'll identify why we're here, and they'll identify what we're going to do while we're here. And in Agile, we utilize stories in much the same way to progress our technology development. We utilize stories to progress our content development. And we use stories to iterate and drive forward to deliver those products and content together. The approach that we believe makes most sense is setting up for early and multiple deliveries of content. And the utilization of stories and the application of Agile development methodologies allows us to do that. And we organize our teams and our deliveries to tie together content development and product development into a single set of common requirements. It's not enough to deliver just the technology, and it's not enough to deliver just the content. And we talked just briefly about examples where in doing that we have technology that doesn't use content, content that doesn't use technology, and you're really out of sync and frankly pouring money into things that don't need to be, where you are not getting any return. But it's bringing those activities together, content technology development, into a coordinated fashion that delivers fast results. The bottom line from an Agile content development perspective is that we utilize stories to define what it is we're going to deliver, and we deliver those items in very short iterations. We also go through a process of continuously refining requirements throughout the process, or stories. The approach is to start a story at a very high level, not very granular, and develop those into release plans, which get into greater degrees of granularity. And then finally into iterations of delivery, where we have very specific things that can be delivered in very short periods of time. Oftentimes it's a 2 to 3 week cycle. So what makes or breaks your product development activities is that you do this not only with the technology, where this approach is fairly well known and understood, but also with your content. And you marry those two together to coordinate the development cycles. So we've taken that concept of agile technology development and agile content development, work through cycles rapidly in order to get product ready to release, and then we go through then we go into a release methodology, which we're going to address now, which moves that out to market. And those concepts of agile extend into that as well. The idea with our progressive release methodology is to go through a very planned and a very organized series of releases, working from alpha to beta through your final releases. And the key message here, I think the key message here is to align your vision of what product is going to be to the release plan. You iterate on it and you get feedback all along the way. You can see here how the iterations and the pace set by the development cycles lead to a similar approach in releasing the product to market. Some publishers recognize and utilize this type of release process to implement that minimum viable product concept. And even if that's not what you're after and is not appropriate for your specific circumstance, taking this kind of approach to release products, get customer feedback, reflect that feedback in the product, and release again is something that we believe is essential. And as you progress through those releases, the audience size can get bigger and change over time. So the last methodology in our defined approach is the publishing consultancy. And we look at the publishing world generally through 4 lenses: content, process and workflow, organization, and technology. And we've defined approaches to examine through each of these lenses, including assessing the skills of your organization. So understanding where your skills are and knowing how to develop those skills or supplement them along the road is essential. So if I can recap the overall takeaways from the methodology and how they begin addressing those 6 landmines, those 6 critical issues. One is to define the product using visual methods versus an exhaustive requirements definition. Second is related to your content and understanding specifically the features and functions required in the product to ensure that those are reflected in the content. The third area is related to technology and looking not only at the technical aspects of your technology decisions, but also the business impacts of those decisions. You really need to understand how they impact your ability to monetize content, to understand your readership, and how the technology either helps or hinders your strategic direction. And the final takeaway is to utilize an agile approach with both your content and technology. So now we're going to take a look at a couple of public domain examples of interesting activity in the world. And these are actually not publishing examples, but you can see how content and concepts of publishing are making its way throughout other industries. Juniper provides an example of a computer hardware manufacturer. It's mirroring the kinds of web experience that you may expect in an academic setting or an STM type setting. The user has a navigable taxonomy, has collections of content, topical components, and tools such as associated downloads. One of the strengths of what we're doing at Innodata is that we are seeing not only going from publishing into non-publishing sectors, but also back a lot of convergence on that end of the way products are coming together and being delivered. That's the first example of what is happening. The second example is related to user-generated content. Finally, user-generated content is finding a real application in the world of technical content. Sun Microsystems was a trailblazer in the use of a public wiki to engage with their customers and collaborate on learning through technical content and user-generated content. Now, Autodesk, who you see here, has taken this to the next level with their WikiHelp service. The issue for Autodesk is that they were losing control of their messaging due to poor delivery of content to their customers. The Autodesk user assistance teams, help desk, consistently produced high-quality content, but users had a very poor experience in finding that content, which relates directly to some of the experiences that we're seeing in publishing. Publishers and content providers have fantastic content, but the experience that the user is getting is not drawing them into it. So Autodesk realized that there was actually a vast array of user-contributed knowledge that was accessible not from within their products. People were posting to YouTube, they were using blogs and discussion groups to talk about Autodesk products, and Autodesk was losing control of what was happening there. So Autodesk took the strategic decision to position learning, and that's their product, what they call their product information and help, as a competitive differentiator. And they're leveraging the strength and knowledge of their user community. They found ways to simplify access to common learning content, and they provide now a single system for the community to contribute content. And they make it available from multiple locations. They make it available in product, they make it available via the web, the mobile, and in many different ways. So the benefits that they've seen is that they've been able to reduce costs for content creation, maintenance, localization, and delivery. They've been able to refocus their user assistance team resources on creation of new multimedia content. They provided consistent usage metrics to allow more rapid improvement in the value of the content that they deliver. That's that feedback of what people are using, what they're accessing, how they're accessing it, and how they're using that information. And they're getting support for consistent user assistance across all of their products. Now, this particular product was created on the MindTouch platform. WikiHelp, which is the name of the product, is a combination of user contributions that are moderated and also Autodesk authored learning content. Some of the key challenges that Autodesk had to work their way through included the business process of integrating user content, the technologies that they were going to use, how users would leverage their own content, and how it could be used by Autodesk as core in the future. They also had to establish how to collect data and metrics about what content was considered most valuable, and how to engage and to, in fact, reward contributions. The wiki also includes multimedia, and it's organized by subject and topic, as well as presenting rating rankings. Overall, WikiHelp has actually been a huge success for Autodesk. And with its rollout, within the first year, hundreds of thousands of contributions have been made. So let's wrap up before we get to the question and answer part of this. We believe that there is a clear, defined approach for creating new products. And that defined approach starts out with understanding where you want to go, utilizing certain methods and techniques to establish and drive forward that vision. Then using agile methods, which marry content, user interface development, and technology development to make it happen. What we've described is an integrated approach and an integrated set of methodologies which address the 6 critical challenges of new product development and the 3 key insights we have developed through our work. Those insights are that content and technology development must go hand in hand. We have to manage our digital content development with a progressive release methodology, and we really do have to be agile, not only in terms of what our product delivers, but also how we deliver our product. So utilizing this defined approach, it does position you to fulfill the promises of digital. It positions you to understand how you're going to work across these numerous channels and across various devices without necessarily just taking on another process to make it happen.